result, better than a loss, not as good as a win. We're playing at home, so obviously wins are crucial when we're trying to get back into the playoff race and climb up the ladder. So I'd give it a 5 out of 10 in terms of a draw. Performance is a little bit easier to talk about. I thought first half was not good, and it was not good for one very simple reason. We couldn't complete passes. I thought the energy was excellent from the guys. I thought for the most part we were organized defensively, with a couple exceptions in the game, but we could not complete simple passes from A to B. And so when you're killing yourself defensively to win balls and put yourself in good positions to attack, but then instantly you give the ball back to the other team, it's deflating. And to be fair, I didn't think any of the guys slowed down, which is probably what kept us at 0-0 at halftime. But it was very clear that was the one thing that we needed to improve on in the second half. I thought the subs came in and made a massive difference. I thought Jurgen was very, very good. I thought Gagi was very, very good. And look, I didn't think Julian and Maury played poorly, but Gagi was just cleaner with the ball and possession, finding the right passes. And I thought Jurgen, same thing. I mean, he provided us not only a lot of defensive effort, but the ability to get forward and connect passes in the attacking half. So those guys made a big difference. I thought Danny came in and did well as well, connecting passes through the middle. I mean, at the end of the day, our whole team just looked more cohesive with the ball, and that allowed us to grow into the game. I don't know what the possession stats were, but El Paso's a very possession-oriented team, and I'm assuming that we had vast majority of the possession in the second half. So it was a 180 from the second half. And in terms of creation, I thought we had tons of chances. Could have easily gotten one of them and turned a draw into a tie, a draw into a win. But performance-wise, I think it was perfect in the sense that we saw the bad and the good, and now we can show these guys the things that we need to continue to improve on and the things that are working well. I mean, the guys I have zero complaints from player 1 to player 21 or how many guys we have. Guys have been very welcoming. Guys have been very responsive. They want to learn. They want to get coached. They want to get better. Obviously, guys want to win. Every athlete wants to win. And they've given me everything they had, I think, in the entire week of training and today in the game. So I couldn't ask anything more from them in that sense. I think that was something that we talked about. So I think normally, on a normal week, right, when you have a team for a longer period of time, you're probably focusing on yourself about 70% and the other team 30%. This week was probably closer to 90-10. I got to get to know the players. I got to get to know the guys. They got to get to know the way I want to play the game. We probably touched on El Paso for maybe half a day, right? I think it was mostly about their organization, from how they press to how they want to build out. They're dangerous players on the field, but that was probably the extent of it. And the 90% was, how we want to do all those things. And to be honest, I would love to get to a point where we have less reactionary tactics and more an ideology of how we want to play and an understanding whether, regardless if we're home or away or who we're playing against, we still want to play our style of play. Of course, the opponent always plays a factor in the game, but at the end of the day, you go into a game thinking, this is the way I like to play. I like to have possession. I like to create from the back. I like to create moments of pressing situations so the other team doesn't feel comfortable in possession. And again, I thought we did an excellent job at that in the second half. So it was really good to see that the guys picked up a lot of things. Only 4 days of training and game day. So there's a lot to be optimistic about. What's the what?
What's the appeal?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the organization has a lot of positive things going for it, right? I think that there is a really good fan base. I think that there is a lot of positive growth within the organization. I think there's a lot of goals going into the next 3 years. Once there's the USL, is it League One that it's going to be called?
USL Premier.
So again, there's a lot of things that are attractive. The other part is I think that the roster is better than the performances. So For me, this is my first opportunity as a head coach of a first team. And, you know, when you compare that to what I did at SKC2, it's night and day. And I've been, you know, waiting for this kind of opportunity. And this one felt right. I think that the players that we have fit a lot of the things that I want to try and do with them. And I think that the organization itself outside of the soccer field is one that has a lot of ambition, and so do I. So I think that makes a lot of sense for myself, and I think that's probably why they thought I made a lot of sense for the club.
Some goals, you know, you have for yourself.
Well, I can tell you the goals that I have for myself and for the club. I think that one of the things that Oakland has struggled to do in the last 4.5 years in the USL Championship is have a true identity of how they play.
Definitely.
I think it's extreme. I mean, I come from Sporting Kansas City, that anybody that watches MLS knows exactly how Sporting wanted to play, how Peter wanted to play. I want to have that, right? I want to have an ability to say, hey, that's the way Oakland plays, that's the way Benny coaches. Win, lose, or draw, the fans can understand what we're trying to do. They can talk about our team and you know, educate other people of like, hey, this is the way Oakland plays. You're going to go to a game and you're going to see this. Yeah. And I think that's an incredibly important thing. And so, you know, 18 games down the road, I hope that you know, fans can say, okay, whether we did well or not, this is the way Benny played. This is the way Oakland's identity is. So that if I'm here further, you know, after this season, that's what they can expect. And then from a results base, I mean, you know, in American sports, playoffs always has to be the bare minimum, right? I think you put yourself in a position to compete for a championship, you got to get into the playoffs, and obviously 8 out of 12 is a low bar for any team, but that's, I think, where it starts.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what kind of identity you have if you're losing every single game and not making the playoffs. So I would say that that's the bare minimum. But at the end of the day, I have, you know, bigger goals. If we can get this team playing more so like we did in that second half, I think we should have real ambitions of trying to get a home game in the playoff. It doesn't mean that you achieve it, but you have those goals.
What would you say is the imprint of Benny Feilhaber's system?
So I definitely have, you know, a certain idea, but having said that, I am not the kind of coach that no matter what pieces I have, I want to play that way.
Yeah.
I just think that you have to have the pieces to play a certain way of soccer, and if the pieces fit a certain other way, then I think that's my job to find out what way that is. Now, having said that, I think, you know, I'm 1 week in, so it's not like I have all the answers, but I think that this team has the capability of playing more possession-based. I'm not a coach that likes possession for possession's sake. I think possession needs to create opportunities, chances, be entertaining, be dynamic in the final third. Defensively, I'm a coach that likes to put pressure on the other team in certain areas of the field. I don't want my guys on defensive moments of the game running around crazy and getting tired. I like my attacking players having the energy to play when we have the ball. So how quickly can we win the ball back? How effortlessly can we win the ball back? Let the other team kind of get into difficult situations before we start, you know, squeezing them. Again, I actually really think that the second half painted a really good picture of what I hope this team looks like. The only thing that's missing is a little bit more quality in the final third, really in the box, right? We had tons of chances in and around the box in the second half, and I think that's one thing that I'll definitely harp on with video, showing guys, okay, maybe we need to make these extra runs, or we need to find a more quality pass. So I think that to me is the part that I feel the most confident with, to be able to change those ideas, because that's the part of the game that I see so well. So again, I was really happy with the performance in the second half. I think that we can, you know, have a little bit of a platform to build from there. I mean, a lot of the defensive posture is a lot about mentality and attitude. I think a coach has to put players in a position to succeed, and soccer is a game of 11 guys. So all 11 guys have to understand exactly what their roles are, right? So to me, one of the first things that I show the guys is the roles and responsibilities of each position. What are you tasked in doing defensively? If you're a wing back, where do you pressure? When do you sit back? The back three, who's stepping in? How do you collapse and make sure that the space in behind is not exposed? Midfielders, where are you applying pressure on the opposite team? Forwards, how do we want to close down space and make it more obvious for the 7 behind you where the ball might go? I think that's where you start, but at the end of the day, the players have to be willing to, put their necks on the line at times, because it really is about attitude. It's about one-on-one moments and just wanting to beat the player across from you. And I thought in the first half there was moments where we weren't necessarily in the right spaces, and that was one of the conversations that we had at halftime to make sure that we clean that stuff up. I thought they had too many moments in the first half where they got balls into the channels and we were a little bit out of position, and we got a little bit lucky to not give up a goal. But in the second half, we were exceptional in that part of the game. So, I think defensive lapses come when teams are unorganized and unaware of exactly where they need to be, and then there's the part for the player themselves that doesn't have to do with the coach and winning duels and being tough. And again, second half was exceptional.
Okay. You mentioned that Anthony.
A project that it's short term. I think that my guess, and I wasn't necessarily told this, but how many coaches has Oakland had in the 4.5 years in the USL? You guys would know better than me.
Number 6.
So we've had 5 before, and I think that's a worry, right? You don't want to keep putting coaches in there for long-term contracts and not necessarily believing in them or getting the right person. And for me, with the size of the project and the opportunity for myself to showcase what I can do, I thought it fit in for me as well. So my guess is, from the club's perspective, is we like what you've done, but come and show it, kind of thing. And then we'll see what the future holds. And for me, I'm totally okay with that too.
You on a podcast interview you did earlier this week, you said it was a little bit of a whirlwind, this hire. When did Oakland first approach you to potentially become the head coach?
Well, the first conversation that I had wasn't necessarily about, I guess, becoming the head coach. It was more about getting to know me. And that was probably about maybe 4 or 6 weeks ago. I can't remember exactly. I got to speak to Yamo, and got to kind of find out a little bit about the project. He wanted to ask questions about me, and then it kind of, that was a little bit for a while, and then it kind of came pretty quickly in the last before this week, probably in the 48 hours to 72 hours before it actually got done. It was all pretty quick, and honestly, that was mostly done with my agent. It was more contractual stuff and that kind of thing. But once I knew that they were interested in me, I think they already knew that I would have been interested in the job.
Okay.
So then it kind of came to fruition pretty quickly.
One last one.
5 days of practice.
Yeah, again, I think the USL is so similar to MLS that there's so much parity, right? So whether you're the top team or the bottom team, I think games are always going to be competitive. And then I go back to less so the ability to keep a clean sheet, because you look at the first half, we had a clean sheet, and you look at the second half and you had a clean sheet, and those were completely different halves.
Yeah.
So less, I'm going to talk less about the shutout to the guys, and I'm going to talk more about how we played, in the second half, because at the end of the day, it was a game of 2 halves, even though both halves were 0-0. So, it's great to keep the clean sheet. I think it brings confidence to the team. I think it's a little bit of a proof of concept for the guys to see, the little steps that we're taking are being implemented and helping us grow. But yeah, for sure, the biggest point that I'm going to give these guys is the disparity between, what we kind of didn't do right in the first half versus this is what it can look like.
Thanks, guys.